Hello, I'm Finlay Taylor and I'm an artist who established Pupa Press in 1999, and so about 22 years ago, I suppose. But I'm interested in kind of natural history, you might say, or phenomena in the landscape, specific sites, and kind of species. And the Pupa Press was established to support my kind of and put a name to my practice involved with books in editions or books as objects and printed matter, but also as a way of collaborating and building on the kind of communities that I work within, the artistic kind of communities, and getting involved with other people and building a kind of context and a conversation. The large blue book that I'm going to talk a little bit about is a pamphlet. It's a small handheld book, 10 by 15 centimeters, and it's a piece that is a collection of kind of drawings or texts and drawings held within the container of the book that reflects upon how we think about the natural world and this specific species which became extinct in the UK in 1979. And rather than it's very well documented now and illustrated and kind of collected in historically over the years. But I didn't want to picture the butterfly. I wanted to use the qualities of the pages and the scale and these texts to think about it differently. And in making the book, I carried around some paper to draw on, keep notes on, to develop the idea that was exactly the same size as the printed area was going to be, and that would fold down into the book. And I'd draw and write and think, get my ideas out onto these sheets of paper, which I carried in a bag. And so they gathered the attrition of travelling with me, of coming out in a coffee shop or on the train to work. And that was the kind of my studio space, my thinking space. That was me being in the field, as it were, but not as a scientist, as an artist, making these kind of poetic sort of registers, an emotive response to the specifics of this butterfly. And it has a very particular kind of life cycle, fascinating life cycle. And the butterfly's caterpillar feeds on thyme, in a particular habitat it's very fussy about. And after the caterpillar's maybe shed its skin a couple of times, it begins to emit a sugary solution. And this solution is attractive to ants, a very particular species of red ant. And the red ants pick up the little caterpillars and take them into their underground nests, which is great for the caterpillars because it protects them from predators from the outside. And the caterpillar emits a pheromone that mimics the ant pheromone. So the ant thinks it's a grub, an ant grub, and looks after it and tends it. But it's at this point the caterpillar changes its diet from vegetarian to carnivore and begins to eat and live off the ant grubs themselves, before eventually it pupates over winter before hatching and escaping the ant nest the next year. Now the ants, as the butterfly hatches from its chrysalis and has to escape the ant nest, the ants recognise that it's actually an intruder, an imposter, and they sometimes the butterflies get killed as they're escaping before their wings are puffed up to full scale. But often they escape, obviously, and the species survives. And it's quite a hairy butterfly, as many are, and the hairs on the butterfly's body jam up the mandibles of the ants, or come off in the mandibles, and so it can survive successfully. So some of the texts in the book, these drawn spaces, say things like disguise mistress, or subterranean feeding chamber. So they're referring to the specific kind of qualities that the ant employs, or the larvae employs, to survive. Some of them say things like shit happens underground, or laws in order. So there are things, referring perhaps to natural laws or kind of wider laws, and things happening undercover, unseen, and certainly unseen by us. But there are these multiple layers to environments and habitats. Other texts say things like secret desires or special requirements. And one text down the edge of a page, almost just appearing, says foreign impostors. And this butterfly has been really successfully reintroduced to the UK from the large blue species that have survived in other countries across Europe. And there's one that was found that's very near match to our own species from Scandinavia. So those were reintroduced successfully over the last few decades. And but what it is it has its differences. You know, the wing patterns of our ones have developed, has evolved in a certain way with these subtle differences. So those are lost, and those are lost forever. Thank you.